What's up, guys? Jay here, Jay Media One, and we're going to do some cool Mac tips and tricks today, but we're doing this live. And the reason why is because we want you guys to be able to ask questions. So you're going to be able to ask away this entire show and decide what you like best, and hopefully we get some cool questions and we can give some cool answers. All right, guys. So let's just get straight to this. All right, so here we have the desktop. I don't know how many of you have never owned a Mac before. So that's key is the setup on this thing because you want to be able to have a real clean setup. Mac is pretty intuitive. It's a pretty user friendly operating system, especially with the new Ventura. Ventura's got some really cool things going on. Ventura's got a whole bunch of options. You can do some really cool things with continuity camera, meaning that you can use your cell phone to actually be your webcam. Now that is limited a little bit. It's 1080p versus maybe 4K or something that you can actually get out of your cell phone. But the cool part is that you can use it. They even make this little attachment that you can put on top of your laptop that'll wirelessly charge your phone while you're using it for that purpose. There's also some cool features within continuity camera. We're just going to talk about this for a little bit. Questions are open the entire time, just so you guys are aware. So inside a continuity camera, you get this really cool pop up here called Video Effects Center Stage. That kind of traps you in it. So I have center stage on now. And you can see as I move around, it kind of follows me. Now, there's also portrait, which kind of blurs the background. You guys can see that. And then there's some studio lighting, kind of puts this vignette around you. And then if you go straight studio lighting, you can see that a little bit better without the portrait part of it. Okay, so I don't care about that. That's just my webcam pop up. You might see some pop ups because I didn't specific. We are doing this live, right? So you can't edit this stuff out. It is what it is. It is what you see. But it also makes it kind of cool that way. This is actually my first live, so hopefully we get at least one or two people to ask a question. That would be kind of cool. If not, we will have the replay so you guys can watch that. So center stage gives you those cool effects. You also get this thing called desk view. And let me just kind of show you what that looks like because it's a little bit weird. So we're going to drag desk view down here so you guys can see, because what happens with desk view is it opens up into a different window. Hang on, let me see if I can drag it over. It's not being super friendly with me. No, you can't, but it shows a small area in front of your desk, right? And so let me see. Hang on. We're going to keep going here. I'm going to try to get there. You go. Okay, so you can see the area in front of me. You can see where my hands are right here, kind of in this general area. It gives you that kind of cool desk view. So you guys can do some like different presentations with stuff. Like we did a review on this mirror. You can talk about that with a desk view and be showing it here. Professionally, it's probably not the best thing to use. And the reason behind that is that you're just not going to get the best image inside of here. But also, when you're actually recording, you're not going to be able to see this like if you were editing with Final Cut Pro or something of those sorts. You're just not going to see it. So while it's cool, I think it's cool, but it doesn't really give you a ton of options other than down at the bottom here. Let me try to move this up a little bit so you can see. Down at the bottom, it lets you zoom in and out. So I can zoom out, but that's all the further I get. And this is highly dependent on what the location of your camera is. Right now, I have mine set up on top of my laptop so you guys can kind of see how this stuff works. But if you look, it zooms way down. So I kind of wish that it would go a little bit further out, but what it's using is the wide angle camera on the phone to make this all happen. So six half dozen, right? So it's got that. You also have Stage Manager kind of built in here. Stage Manager's cool. It lets you do a couple different things. So, like I said, we got to keep kind of dragging here. Stage Manager is better to me if you have if you have one desktop, like you're just using your laptop display, if you're using Stage Manager for multiple monitors, it's not the best thing in the world. It kind of puts all the windows over here to the side. So if we pop open a couple things like notes and things like that, see, it's wanting to start on my second window, which I don't want that. So I'm just going to turn this off, but know that it is a viable option. It is really cool if Stage Manager is really cool if you have one monitor, because it puts like all the windows up on the side, and within that you can do some different things. So it's kind of neat. Up here inside of Mac, I don't know if a lot of you guys have owned a Mac for a while or not, but there's some different things. So you get your battery percentage, and then you can put different users on there. It shows you what's playing inside of your music. So you can just quickly play your music right there, turn that on and off, which is kind of cool. And then there's, you can put Dropbox in there. You can put anything in here really that you like. I have my Ring in there. So you can put some different things inside of there. And it's just quick access. You also have this right here, which is your quick notification drop down, or your quick view drop down. And you have your focus status, your mic mode, your display, your volume controls, and things like that on there. So that's neat as well. Let me just do something here. I'm going to play some acoustic music. So anyways, you do have that option as well, which is cool. Now, when you first get your Mac, you're going to notice that there's a little bit difference inside of the system settings. But if you own an iPhone or something, then you're going to have this right here, and this is your preferences. So this is kind of where you want to start. You want to start inside of here on the left-hand side. You're going to be able to check your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, and your network. You're going to be able to set up all of your notifications in here, what you want on, if you want them on when the screen is blocked or locked, and things like that. Sound controls are going to be inside of here, so you can fix that. One of the big things that I like to do is go into my battery and just check my low power mode. Make sure that that's only on battery, because I don't want it just flipping in low power mode or whatnot. Down here at the bottom is an important one. This is options, and you see where it says wake for network access. Now, there was a big issue with people basically being able to use their tablet or their laptop the next day after turning it off. And what was happening was this wasn't on only on a power adapter, it was on always. So what happens is this is like a wake on LAN feature. So if you get a message or an iCloud update, or you need an update period, what this does is it allows it to wake up the computer. And when it does that, it can really, really drain your battery. So I like to leave this on only on power adapter. Then when you charge your laptop and you want to use it the next day, you're going to be okay. You're not going to be like completely stuck with a dead battery. So this is a very important one. Make sure you got that taken care of. You also can set up all your stuff. So your lock screen, your Touch ID, your user groups, and all of that. So you're going to want to set this. One of the first things that I do is I set up my mouse, I set up my trackpad. I go in here and change the tracking speed to a little bit faster. Default's down here. I like the click to be medium. You can turn force click on and off, where it's got that haptic feedback, means it kind of like feels like it's resistive. That can be turned on and off. I always turn tap to click with one finger directly on, because I like to be able to just lightly tap the trackpad and do it that way. So that's another big option inside of there that you're going to want to do when you first get your Mac. Appearance settings, there's a big hype about dark mode. So dark mode just allows it to be darker, but if you turn on auto, it will flip everything to like that dark black appearance at nighttime, and then during the daytime it's going to go back to that very light appearance, which is cool. There's some cool things in accessibility. If you have problems with hearing, or you're your motor skills or your vision. This is going to be very good for you, but it's good for people that don't. It's good for people that just want to try different things. So if you go into motor where it says pointer control, most people don't know this, but you can actually set up your computer to where it can make your pointer track by moving your head. So that's under head pointer right here. And so your head can actually control the movement of your pointer. You look left, you look right, it's going to move in those directions. You can also set up pointer actions, that's these down here. So facial expressions, like if you raise your eyebrows, that could be your left click button. So if you have a hard time moving your arms, your hands, or whatever the situation may be, that is going to be a very, very cool option that you can set up. You're also probably going to want to get into focus. Focus is pretty much just an advanced do not disturb. It lets you do some cool things, like if you're at work, you can set it up to where there's only a certain amount of contacts that will be able to call your phone, text message you, things like that. You can turn certain app notifications off so they're not bugging you throughout the day. The cool thing is when you turn them off, it doesn't completely destroy the notification. It stays on your phone. And then when you're done with that focus mode, it'll come back and say while you were in focus, these things were happening at that point in time. So I think that that's a very, very cool thing as well. So you're going to want to definitely do that. Share across devices. All that does is allow you to share it with your iPhone and your Mac and your tablet if you're using all three at the same time. So you're going to have the ability to do that. Screen time, I definitely leave off. But if it's something where you have like kids, you can see your family members inside of there. And you can set time reports. You can set times that they're only allowed to be on certain apps at certain times. And different things like that. It's more focused around small children, but it's a cool feature. Now, Siri and Spotlight, you're going to be using a lot of Spotlight. I don't know if you're going to use a lot of Siri. That's entirely up to you, but you can turn this on and off to where it'll listen for it. Most people, I've seen both directions, right? I've seen people where they really, really love Siri and they use it a lot, and then people where they hardly ever use it. So you can activate it with quick controls, so you don't have to have that. And sometimes when you have multiple Apple devices, like a phone and a tablet and a Mac, and you use Hey Siri, it'll start to activate everything that you have. So it's not necessarily the best thing to leave on. If there's a keyboard shortcut here for the hold the space button, this is tricky because Command and Space is a shortcut for Spotlight, so you don't want to get those confused. If you hold the dictation button, that's probably the best one. So on a MacBook, that's going to be F5, your F5 function key. And so that's going to be your best one because you don't want to confuse the two of them. Like I said, if I was to tap Command and Space, you can see Spotlight search comes up here. And Spotlight is very cool. Spotlight is what's going to get you to everything on your Mac. So in Windows, down at the bottom where there's that little Windows button, and you click that, you can search for things, right? But Windows, for some reason, ever since Windows 10, maybe 8, I didn't really use 8 that much, but in that range, they decided that it would be a good idea to put all kinds of ads and dumb things inside of there and not allow the search button to actually search for things on the computer anymore. Now its job is to search for things on the web and things that you don't care about. Mac doesn't really do that. It does search for stuff on the web, but it puts it in a lower priority level. For example, if I was to type settings inside of here, you can see where system settings comes up first. Then it'll go down and tell me like, okay, well, there's a website here with settings in it. And then there's like photos that you can look at that have settings in them, and tips. So there's always tips inside of here, which is very cool. If you want to change something or you don't know how to do something, you can look in here for tips, tricks. You don't even need to watch me. Just kidding. But yeah, so there it'll search for your documents. It does it all in kind of like a priority level that it thinks is appropriate. And most of the time, it's right. It is looking for what you are looking for. So I find Spotlight to be one of my favorite things outside of Mission Control. If you're a Windows user coming to Mac, you probably don't understand the term. But Mission Control, basically, if you have a bunch of apps open on your desktop at one time, what it does is it kind of punches those out and lets you see everything that's open on your computer. So I'm going to pull up notes here so you can see how it operates. So Mission Control's off, Mission Control is on. See how it separates them and kind of puts them in a place where you can kind of see everything that's going on. Now, once you get good with a Mac, once you get to the point where, hey, I understand this thing a little bit, you're going to be able to start using gestures, and you're also going to be able to use a lot of gestures and commands. So what I mean by that is you're going to be able to swipe up with 3 fingers on your trackpad, and that's going to pull up that Mission Control like I just showed you. You can swipe left or right with those same 3 fingers, and it's going to pop back and forth between your desktops. Because if you want multiple desktops, that's an option. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's not. So everything is situational. Depends on if you're working, if you're playing, if you're actually trying to accomplish something versus if you're just on there to search the web or watch a movie. It might not be as advantageous to you, but the reason that the Mac is such a good work computer is because it lets you take those ideas, sort them, and keep them all on the same screen. And the screens are shrinking a little bit. There's some MacBooks out there with 13 inches. So you can keep all your stuff on the same screen, but you don't have to open it up into a giant window, because if you want to get back to that window, you're going to be able to use Mission Control. And it works really well. Now, Stage Manager kind of does the same thing. However, Stage Manager, like in a case here where I'm actually recording this live video on my Mac, it's not that advantageous, but it'll put everything kind of over here in like a little slotted, nice clean area, just like Mission Control was. So it works well too, because you can see a preview of everything on the side, just like you were previewing giant icons in a folder. And if you click on that preview, it'll bring it to the forefront of what you're actually doing. So that's advantageous when you're working. And like I said, it's all specific to what you're doing on your Mac and what's important to you at that time. So you're going to use Stage Manager sometimes, and there's going to be times when you don't. And I hear a lot of good and bad things about it, but here's the facts. Apple's just trying to optimize their operating system so that there's a little bit of something for everybody. Because I can tell you that I used to be the only Mac user that I knew for a long time. And there's part of that's because they're expensive, but also because people just didn't understand it. Windows did a very good job of putting their platform on every computer that was out there, minus Apple computers. And that makes Windows not only cheaper, but it makes it more broad. And so people understand the operating system, they're going to stick with what they know. They're not going to try to change, because if they change, then they might get confused, they might not know what they're doing. But I'm telling you, this thing is so intuitive that it's going to take you maybe, and I'm dead serious here, maybe a week of using it, and you're going to be gone. The other side to Mac that I really, really love is that everything is just very smooth. So what I mean by that is you can have a window open. Like let me open Safari here. Now Safari is probably the best browser that you can use for your Mac, and I'm tell you right now why people don't use it. People don't use Safari because of profiles. So Safari doesn't offer a profile like Chrome does. And what I mean by that is Google Chrome allows you to set a little profile picture up here, and that'll sync all of your bookmarks, all of your passwords, all of your history on that specific profile. Now, if you're a person that likes to go to work and use the same computer, what are you able to do? So what are you able to do? Well, you're able to switch the profile to your work profile. Now all your bookmarks for your work, all of your passwords for your work, and all of your stuff is saved in an orientation for work. And then if you have a profile for a second job, like for me, for example, I work a day job, and then I do videos and reviews, and I write a blog, and I have a podcast. So I do another job at night, and I don't do that every day during the week. I do it 3 days, 4 days a week. And then I have a profile just for my personal stuff, like my bills and things like that. So that is very advantageous to have. For some reason, Apple doesn't, but what you can do to kind of counter that in Apple is you make these. And so these are user profiles. Sorry, I accidentally clicked on one there, and I think it killed it for a second. I don't think anyone's in here right now. But, so those are your user profiles, and what you would do is you just make a user profile for work, a user profile for home. But, and that's fine. My big thing with that is I like keeping my files in one specific place, so it's just a caveat to both situations. Chrome is good, it works okay, but it does suck battery way worse than Safari. So anyways, back to the original topic. If I'm in Safari and I open a window, and 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 just windows, and I have 56 tabs open inside of here, which is quite possible. I mean, some people do get to the point where they're doing so much stuff, they just, windows everywhere. Mac is very good at that. They're very optimized with Apple Silicon. If you get anything with an M1 chip or greater, meaning M1, M2, Pro Max, doesn't matter. The M1 chip does a very good job at two things: battery conservation and RAM allocation. And so unified memory is something that you'll have to look up, or maybe I'll do a review on that someday. But unified memory inside of the Mac or the Apple hardware inside of one of these computers is amazing. It does a really good job of optimizing it. And what I mean by that is it's able to tell if you're from one website to the next, it can quickly switch back and forth like you have a cache just the size of a terabyte. And a cache is something that's just a little extra library that saves data so you can switch back and forth easily. And they do a very good job with their unified memory RAM inside of these, so that nothing slows down or lags. You'll hardly ever see any kind of situation where there's lag. Now, the other side to that I was talking about is battery conservation. Macs can go about 22 hours on low screen brightness, watching a video, and doing some light work. Now, do I think that's every use case or no, it's not going to be. Most times, if you're using this thing all day for work without it plugged in, and I've done that several times. I have the MacBook Pro 14-inch. I have a review on it. You guys can check it out. And it's the base model. It's nothing fancy, because I knew that when Apple started creating their own silicone that I wouldn't need to spend a whole bunch of money. Now, since then, I've upgraded because of video editing purposes. But if you're not a video editor, a graphic designer, then you're not going to need to in most cases. But anywho, so the battery conservation on these things will give you, with average work throughout the day, about 10 hours, sometimes 12. And that's your screen brightness is what's going to take up most of the battery. If you leave your screen brightness at about half and you have peak brightness of 1,000 nits or so, which I don't know exactly how many nits it has, but I'll just say 1,000 because it's an even number. And you leave it at half, you're sitting at 500 nits, which is plenty enough if you're just in a basic office or room. Then you will be able to go 10 hours. And what Windows PC out there, I don't know of one that can make it 10 hours on a battery. There might be one, but I don't know about price for price, bang for the buck type situation. I know Windows has a problem with their Wake on LAN, and the thing with Windows is that you can't just turn it off like you can on a Mac. On a Mac, you just have a toggle switch. On a Windows PC, you don't. And actually, Linus from Linus Tech Tips actually did a video on that, and was talking about that and how it's frustrating him, and how a lot of his people at his company are switching to Macs because of that. So it is something that Windows could probably fix with the software update. But attention to customers and attention to detail is important. I don't think that Windows should try to be more like Mac. They do that a lot. That Windows 11 now has a very close to user interface like the Mac does, where the dock system is in the center like Mac does. So it's like, come on guys, just stick with what you are good at. People already like your operating system the way that it is. But they have to be different, so it is what it is. Let me see what happened here. I lost camera feed for some reason. There we go. Sorry about that. So anyways, my point is that, sometimes you don't have to change things if they ain't broke, don't fix them type of situations. And Mac does a pretty good job of that. They keep the things that people like. Now, the cool thing is that they seem like they're starting to listen to us again. On the Mac computer now, we have the ability to plug in a HDMI again. We have the ability to have a normal size SSD card. We have the headphone jack, and they brought back MagSafe, which I love MagSafe. The only other thing that I'd like to do as far as physically and aesthetically on their computers is two things. One, bring back the glowing Apple logo. It just looks cool. It's a little bit trickier now because the lids are a lot thinner, and back then they were thicker to where they could put that LED inside of there and not have an issue. Do I still think it's possible? Sure. Anything's possible, but how much time and effort do you want to put into an glowing logo? I think it made them stand out. When you've seen someone use a Mac, you knew it was a Mac. And that's kind of important, right? Brand recognition. Apple has good brand recognition. As soon as you see an Apple, you know what it is, but they didn't always have that. They used to have to write Apple on their stuff and Mac on their stuff, and they don't anymore. But anyways, besides that whole point, that tangent, we're just going off on tangents tonight because, again, this is my first live video. But they do listen to their users, so we are getting some things back that we really love. Now, the other thing that I was going to tell you about is the touch bar. So I like the touch bar. I know some people don't like the touch bar, and I've been back and forth with this. Now, the only Mac that you can buy that's somewhat of a decent performing laptop right now that has the touch bar is the 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 chip. But the 13-inch the 13-inch MacBook Pro, losing my words there, does not have anywhere near the capabilities or the ports that the 14 or the 16 MacBooks have. So if you're somebody that likes those features, then that's what you're going to want to get. You're going to want to get a 14 or 16-inch MacBook. You're not going to want to get the 13-inch. Now, the 13-inch still has 2 USB-C slots, and that's it. It does have a better processor. But what's as powerful as the Mac is, I think once the 14 and 16-inch get the M2 processor, which is coming out this upcoming year, that's where I'm going to be at. I'm going to probably get one of those, get the 16-inch and just upgrade the crap out of it. Minus the storage, because storage gets insanely expensive. You can spend up to $6,000 on a Mac just buying storage. External hard drive, Dropbox, iCloud Drive helps with that stuff. It is annoying when you don't have enough storage, but Yeah, it's just a way of the world. Right now they can charge for it, so they do. But anyway, back to the point. So the 13, it has that. Now, the 14 and the 16 are going to be more for professional users. So you're going to want to have that, and you're going to lose the touch bar. Now, I don't think that they have to have them on every one of them. Make it an option. Make it a buy-in option. I want to buy into the touch bar. I don't want a touch bar. I want the function keys. I don't want the function keys. Now, the touch bar really makes more sense. Why? Because the touch bar lets you turn it into whatever you're using as a secondary interface or window. Effectively, it's a mini computer display that's touchscreen on your keyboard. So when you're using music, it turns the play, fast forward, pause, and rewind. When you're using Safari, it's the back button, it's the stop button, it's the forward button, it's the browser bar. It's just cool. Now, why do people not like this? If you want it to be function keys, then just make it so that it can turn into a function row. Then we have the best of both worlds. But they take that feature away. Now, I don't know if that's because of cost or because they're jam-packing so much crap inside of these laptops and they want them to be as thin as humanly possible. I personally can care less how thin my laptop is. I mean, outside of it being the size of a thick box. I would rather have features and have a thick laptop. That's just me. So anyways, back to the Mac operating system. Mac does this really well. They can take good care of your interface. And you can set up Safari to where it looks really good. It's got these nice thin bookmarks on top here. I like to have those show up. But, that's that. Now, one thing I want to show you guys is what's called disk utility. Disk utility is very important on Macs. If I can type tonight. So disk utility is important. Why? Because disk utility lets you set up, kind of like Hardware Manager on Windows, your external drives or your drives that are attached to the computer. So as you can see, this is a data volume. It's encrypted, and it shows you my partition space on there. It also shows you your capacity, what's available, where it's mounted, and things of that sort. What type it is. This is important if you use a lot of external drives. If you're using SSD cards, if you're using external hard drives, because this is where you're going to go to set them up. Now, FAT32 was a Windows format, but FATEX32 had to come out because FAT32 only supported, I believe, up to 4 gigs, somewhere in that range. Kind of the same thing with the 32-bit versus 64-bit operating system. They just grew too big for their bridges. So if you really want to run your external drive on a Mac and a PC, you're going to want to format it for exFAT32. Now, if you don't care about that, you can run APFS and just use it on your Macs. And APFS is a pretty efficient partition. But the other cool thing is you can do first aid here. So if you're having a problem with your drive, you can detect and repair errors with it in the selected volume container or the partition map. This shows you your partition and also lets you divide and partition drives. Very useful. Erase is going to allow you to format it. Restore is going to let you bring it back to where it was. And unmount is like eject on a Windows computer. Now, the mounting and unmounting of drives on a Mac is very cool. It's super easy and it's intuitive. Like I said, this whole entire thing. And you can see like this icon kind of pops across here. But you click on it and you drag it to the trash can. And it's dismounted. I'm going to go into my display settings. You have to know how to type for this to all work. Back to where I need to be here. You see, if I type it all in, it comes right up there. And this is where you can select and arrange your displays, but my thing that I'm trying to do here is to make sure the built-in display is actually showing up as my main. So that's extended. So now we just did a flipperoonie. When you do that, it allows your icons to show up. So let me fix this now that I did a flipperoonie on you. Okay, I think we're back. So, let me fix this. And, you know, arranging your monitors and being prepared is a big part of what I usually do. However, I was running late tonight for a meeting, and I forgot I was doing this live, which is entirely my fault. Anyways, so back to this. Let me shrink myself. Let me take this bar off here so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so now you can see my whole desktop. So down here is your dock, right? And the dock is very, very cool and very important. I use the dock all the time, and you can set it up differently. You can have it at the bottom, you can have it at the side. I love the magnification feature. I will always remember using that for the first time, thinking, how cool is that? Because you don't have to have it huge. If you put your thing on it and you can know what the icon looks like, then it's going to pop up and tell you not only what the icon is, what the text above it, but it's also going to show you it a little bit bigger. So that's cool. You can effectively change all of that. So let me show you. So if you go into system settings or type in dock, everything's super easy. I mean, you just have to know where to go, and you can type it in. You don't have to go looking through everything. It drives me crazy that people actually do that. So this is where you can change your dock size. See how I shrink it, make it big, and make it huge. Make it super, super tiny, which is, no, I'm not going to strain my eyeballs that much, but I like it to be about this size. Magnification, you can make that magnify super, so you can make it huge, or you can make it barely magnified. Positioning, a lot of people like it on the left. The reason why is because our displays now are 16 by 9 format. And what that means is they're wider than they are tall. So you have more room on the left than you do on the bottom, but I got so used to using the dock on the bottom, I tried to make it on the left, and it felt like Linux to me, and that might sound weird, but if you're a computer person and you use Linux and Windows and Mac like I do, my Linux, I use Ubuntu, and my Linux bar has always been on the left. So I know what operating system I'm in just by how it looks. And if I try to make, I can almost make Mac look exactly like Linux because they're based off of the same code, right? So anyways, I like mine down at the bottom. Now the biggest things you're going to want to do is figure out what you're going to use down here, because you don't need to keep all of these down here. If you go to your options, you right click and you go to remove from dock, that icon's gone. So it's only going to keep down here what you really like. Now these are quick previews of what you've recently used down here. And those aren't going to be permanently there. Those are going to be there until you no longer need them, like if I quit this and then it's gone. If I want to keep it, I have to right click on it, and I have to go to options, and I have to go keep in dock. And then it'll stay inside of the dock for good. Now you don't want your dock to have too much, and you don't want it to have junk that you're never going to use. So I use everything that's in here. Okay. Some people don't, and if you have things like you never use the notes or you never use your reminders, right click on them and get them out of there. Use only what you have to use, because clutter makes things harder. When you have a whole bunch of crap on your desktop, it makes it more difficult, and that's going to lead us to our next tip and trick. So your desktop icons. So what's different about these? Well, these are set up as stacks. See how that opened up when I clicked on it? What that means is that it's going to take every file format that is the same, and it's going to stack them together. So like JPEGs are going to stack here, PDFs are going to stack here, movies are going to stack here. And stacks keep your desktop clean. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't ever use desktops and you use everything in folders and you're a super neat person, you're going to love this too, because it keeps everything clean and tidy. Using stacks is real simple. You just right click and go to use stacks. Now you can group them by different things. You can group them by the kind, like they are now with JPEG, PDF, and whatnots. Or you can group them by when they were added or modified, when they were open. And then you can go in there and show your view options. Apple is they're so smart, right? Because Apple did one thing that Windows just didn't do. Let me get bigger so I can type. Okay. And that is, they knew that eventually they were going to have enough products to where they needed to make sure that these products worked very well together. Because when you own an ecosystem, you can pretty much own your customer. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. If you're tied up in an ecosystem to where everything just works so well together, then why would you ever want to leave it? Even if they make a crappy product. Let's just say they make one crappy product, but you have 5 that work really well together. You're going to stay. And so Apple figured that out early on, and they adopted that, and they've been doing that since they were inceptualized, since the beginning. They have started doing that from the Mac computers, let's just go with Apple II, Apple I, Apple II. They went to the Macintosh. And then they went to the iPhones, and then they went to they had a whole bunch of bunk products in between, but you had the iPhones, you had the iPods, you had the AirPods, you had the MacBooks, and then you have the iMacs, the all-in-ones, and then you have, the watches. And so there's so many things now that they have that are just smooth. And what do I mean by that? Well, the ecosystem means that if I have a phone, and we're going to go back to my computer here so I can show you this cool example. So if I have a phone, I right-click and I go to import from iPhone or iPad. I can take a photo right off of my iPad. It's going to pop up on my Mac. I can scan documentation this way. I can add sketches. I can do some fun, cool things. If I have a Windows PC and I have a Samsung Galaxy X, or whatever the heck they're on, they're on like the S22 or something, and I do that, it does not say that, because Apple has their own ecosystem, which means their software is built for their hardware. And now, all of their hardware eventually will be made by Apple themselves. So they won't be dependent on everybody else. And that's not the case now. They do make their own silicone now, which means they're starting to make their own computer chips, but they're still dependent on other places for wireless cards, for example. But when you have an operating system and you have a hardware setup that works together, you have to think to yourself, they only have to optimize their hardware for their software. Windows, what do they have to do? Well, Windows has to make sure their software works on all kinds of hardware. And by doing that, they can never, one, have an ecosystem that works as smoothly as Apple, and two, make everything work as smoothly as it does. When Apple got rid of Intel, they didn't get rid of Intel because Intel sucked, because Intel still makes a lot of stuff, including processors. They made processors for all Macs, they make processors for Windows computers, tons of them. They got rid of them because they knew that if they can make their own chips, then they can optimize their chip to specifically fit the needs of their operating systems. And this works across the board. It works on their iPads, their iPhones, their MacBooks, everything that they do. Even their AirPods have chips in them. They have the W chips, and those allow you to recognize when it's in your ear. They allow for noise cancellation features. They allow for tracking features, all kinds of stuff. So Apple was very, very smart in that regard. So you're going to find that if you have an iPhone or you have an iPad, then you're going to be able to do all kinds of cool things with your Mac. And so it's like if you have an iPhone and an iPad, let's just say you only own those two things. Why on earth would you not want to own a Mac? And here's my point. Because the biggest thing with owning a Mac is what? They cost too much. Macs are expensive. I can buy a Windows PC for cheap on the cheap, and it's going to be just fine. It's going to do what I need it to do. The problem is the longevity on Windows computers is getting shorter, meaning they're just not making it. These companies use cheap plastic, they use crap software, and they use, I won't say crap software because it's been developed and it's okay, but they use crap hardware. They don't really have any regulations or standards, and some are going to be better than others. If I was to tell you today, is a Toughbook better than a Compaq? Or is a HP better than a Dell? You're going to say, what model? Because effectively, some are going to be okay and some are going to suck. And you could say that about Apple's product line, like, okay, well, the MacBook 13-inch, or versus the MacBook Air versus the MacBook Pro. But they're leveled. If you're a MacBook Air user, you're not going to be doing professional video editing, or you shouldn't. You might be able to, but they have a Pro level for a reason. If you're a Pro user, you're going to buy a Pro. You know, on some of these computers, you don't know, hey, if is it a gaming PC? Well, they all claim to be gaming PCs or gaming laptops. It's optimized for gaming. Really? What games? Does there have to be a list? Do they have to say Title A, Title B, Title C? It's very confusing for people. So yeah, I think that this Apple Silicon thing is bringing a lot of gaming back to Macs, which is very cool. I've seen games come back. Popular online games like World of Warcraft are optimized for Mac, the M1 chip. And it's just an ARM infrastructure versus RISC. And it's a little bit confusing if you don't know anything about it, which I may be able to explain it to people if they want to know. But we're starting to get off topic. We're still talking about Apple, but we're starting to get a little off topic from the operating system now. I'm passionate about Apple. I love what Steve Jobs did. I love the aesthetics. I love how smooth it is. I love how easy it is to operate. I have a 5-year-old daughter that has been using an iPad since she was born, and she picked it up, was able to open apps, go to different things. Now she's 5 years old and she can do more things on an iPad than most people. And I'm not saying that my kid's super smart. I'm saying that the operating system is intuitive. Whether it's iOS, macOS, iPhone OS, they're all different and they're all intuitive, and they all serve different purposes. You know, when Windows screwed up with Windows 8. They tried to make it a tablet operating system, and they tried to make it a phone operating system, and they tried to make it a computer operating system. And they don't work like that. You can do things on a computer, or you want to do things on a computer that you can't do on a phone. Nor would I want to. I have an iPad, and I have a Mac, and I have an iMac, and I have an iPhone. Why? Because they serve different purposes. My iMac, I think eventually I can go without, but it is really nice to have it set up, not have to pull it out of my bag and get it going. I will say that with my MacBook, I do have to set it up, but I use it for work. So I take it to work, I set it all up, put it on my desk, plug everything in, blah, blah, blah. But it's nice with the iMac because it's already there, and it's the M1. It's the flat screen with the shoulder, whatever. So that can probably go away. I could probably just use a laptop because I can plug in 2 monitors plus the monitor that I have on the laptop itself, and I'm just fine. I need 3 monitors at all times. It's just how I operate. So the iMac could maybe possibly go away. It does have advantages as well. You know, if you want to be secluded and sit down at your desk and do some real work, it's nice to have a desktop. But my MacBook is irreplaceable. Even if the iPad ran macOS, I would still use my MacBook because a lot of times I use them in tandem. So I'll use the iPad, the iOS system, with my MacBook, and then I can do markup. I can do some cool things. Markup, if you don't know what it is, allows you to basically on your Windows PC, like this one here. Let me flip back to this screen so you guys can see me better. Okay. So if you have an iPad, you can use it as a secondary display. You can just extend this with AirPlay and whatnot. But oftentimes I don't, because Mac has this cool feature in the operating system. If you click up here and you have a second screen, over here it'll say, like if your iPad's connected, it'll say, do you want to use continuity mouse and keyboard? What is that? Well, that lets you use your mouse and keyboard on your iPad, but you're still running your iPad under iOS. You're not running it under Mac, or you're not using it as a extended display. People spend a couple $100 for extended monitors. Why? Get an iPad. Not only is it an extended monitor, but you can do things on it. iPads are fantastic for watching videos. If you're going to lay down on the couch or you're going to read a book before you go to bed, you want an iPad. So they all have their own purpose, just like your phone, just like the watch. A lot of people had their doubts about the watch, but all of these devices make every other device better. What do I mean? If you own an iPhone and you have a Mac, you can do things like take a picture of a document on your phone and send it directly to your Mac. You can do things like handoff. I can copy something on my phone and paste it on my Mac. And when I say that, I mean instantly. I hit copy on my phone, I hit paste on my Mac, and boom, it's done. You don't realize how advantageous that is until you actually do it. Same thing with an iPad. I have an iPad, I can use it as a secondary screen. I can touch on it so I can write and mark up documents. I can circle things that are going to instantaneously show up on my Mac. When you go to do a screenshot on a Mac, let's just bring up a picture of the dog. So a dog, right? If I do Shift Command 4 and I take a picture and I click on this, there's a markup icon that pops up right here. Now this is cool because it allows you to do things. You can make some markup adjustments with a pencil. You can make boxes. You can draw rows. You know, whatever. I want to show you the dog's eye. Okay. So you can do all kinds of markup things. You can even add signatures here, which I think is really cool. Like, there's some really cool things that people just don't know you can do. You can crop this image, whatnot. But if you have an iPad, what's going to happen here is it's going to say Jeff's M1 iPad Pro. Now, formally, I don't go by Jeff. I go by Jay. But anyways, my iPad Pro's there, so I can click that. And what's that going to let me do? It lets me use my Apple Pencil to mark up stuff. And it instantaneously shows up here. I made a video about it. Check it out. I can also do the same thing with my phone. You can't do this if you don't have this stuff. So if you're going to invest in money, I highly recommend just getting a Mac, and I'll help you. send me some Q&As. I'll help you. Join these lives. I'm going to start doing these every week on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to do Q&As. No one's here. I kind of set this up last minute, so I don't think a lot of people knew about it. That being said, you can do cool things like that. So the markup feature is one of my favorite things. Also, one of my favorite things is being able to just rip a photo right out of the background. That's also something that you can do. You have messages. So you don't think that you would use this feature that much, right? But if you want to type someone a text, you can do it on your Mac. So you're not limited by just doing it on your iPhone. Who wants to type on a glass screen when you can type on a keyboard? So you have messages built in. You have maps built in. You can plan routes. You can plan a route on your maps on your Mac and send it to your iPhone. And when you leave work or home, it'll send you there. The ecosystem is amazing on this stuff, and I can spend all night talking about it. I was hoping I'd have some people in here to ask questions so that I can show you some cool things. But I don't think we're going to get there. We're going to set this up next time so that you guys will have a little bit leeway in when we're doing it. But plan on every Friday night at 7 p.m. And I think we're going to call it there. I went on a few tangents tonight, but first live, so whatever. If you guys want to watch the replay, that's cool. If not, that's cool. It will be a lot more exciting when there's more people involved to ask questions. I'm going to have a few special guests. I was planning on giving away these Jayco speakers that I reviewed. If you guys haven't seen that review, definitely check it out. That is Jayco speakers. They're the M20s RGB. They're under $25. They're not super expensive, but for people that are on a budget, I like to help those people too. I mean, not everyone's got tons of money. I know that there was one point in my life where I had nothing. So I want to help you. But yeah, plan. If you guys are watching the replay, plan on next week, and you'll be able to come into the chat. I'll answer your questions right off the bat. I'm not going to be like this, like some of these channels that you watch that I get so many messages that nobody cares about them and their messages just go unanswered. Mine will be answered. So, and I know everything there is to know about Macs. I like to pride myself on my knowledge, but that's just because of 22 plus years using Mac OS and every single thing that they create. Now, if you want to say I'm a fanboy, whatever, I don't really care about that. My reasoning is going to be different than yours, but it does build some knowledge. So as a computer programmer, designer, reviewer, editor, Mac is it for me. Now, I do use Windows sometimes, very rarely anymore, but yeah, Mac is going to ice the cake. So I can help you guys, and I can answer your questions, so be sure to tune in for the next one. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Later.